I can feel God in this place, and I know that you can too. It's the perfect time to bring our speaker tonight, Sister Ashley Oldani. Let's get behind her as she brings us a word tonight.
Let's give him another hand clap of praise right now. Looking forward to that day. Tonight, I'm going to read out of 1 Samuel, chapter 30. I'm going to read verses 1 through 8, and then I'm going to read 11 through 15, and then 18 and 19. So 1 Samuel chapter 30, verse 1 says, "And it came to pass, when David and his men were come to Ziklag on the third day, that the Amalekites had invaded the south and Ziklag, and smitten Ziklag, and burned it with fire, and had taken the women captives that were therein. They slew not any, either great or small, but carried them away, and went on their way. David and his men came to the city, and behold, it was burned with fire, and their wives, and their sons, and their daughters were taken captives. Then David and the people that were with him lifted up their voice and wept until they had no more power to weep. And David's two wives were taken captives, Ahinoam the Jezreelitess, and Abigail the wife of Nabal the Carmelite. And David was greatly distressed. For the people spake of stoning him, because the soul of the people were grieved, every man for his sons and for his daughters. But David encouraged himself in the Lord his God. And David said to Abiathar the priest, Ahimelech's son, I pray thee, bring me hither the ephod. And Abiathar brought thither the ephod to David. And David inquired as to the Lord, saying, Shall I pursue after this troop? Shall I overtake them? And he answered him, Pursue, for thou shalt surely overtake them, and without fail recover all. Verse 11 says, And they found an Egyptian in the field, and brought him to David, and gave him bread, and he did eat, and they made him drink water. And they gave him a piece of a cake of figs, and 2 clusters of raisins. And when he had eaten, his spirit came upon him, for he had eaten no bread, nor drunk any water 3 days and 3 nights. And David said unto him, To whom belongest thou, and whence art thou? And he said, I am a young man of Egypt, servant to an Amalekite, and my master left me, because 3 days agone I fell sick. We made an invasion upon the south of the Cherethites, and upon the coast which belongeth to Judah, and upon the south of Caleb, and we burned Ziklag with fire. And David said to him, Canst thou bring me down to this company? And he said, Swear unto me by God, that thou wilt neither kill me, nor deliver me into the hands of my master, and I will bring thee down to this company. Skipping to verse 18. And David recovered all that the Amalekites had carried away, and David rescued his 2 wives, and there was nothing lacking to them, neither small nor great, neither sons nor daughters, neither spoil nor anything that they had taken to them. David recovered all. Pastor, would you pray over the message? You can be seated. Tonight, my message is entitled, It's Time to Take It All Back. So while David and his men were away, the Amalekites came to Ziklag. They took everything from them, and they burned the city. Everyone in the city was taken prisoner. Just try to imagine that. You leave for a few days on a business trip. You come back, and you find that your entire life was taken from you. Gone, just like that. The devastation that they had to have felt, the pain and despair that they had to have felt. The scripture in verse 4 tries to even help us understand by saying that David and his men cried until they physically could not cry any longer. They truly mourned their loss. Now, I've cried in the past. I cry on every ASPCA commercial. And every time I hear that song, I cry. But I can say that I have never cried so hard and for so long that I physically could not cry anymore. But this was their time to cry. There is a time to every purpose under heaven, a time to be born, a time to die, a time to kill, a time to heal, a time to weep and a time to laugh, a time to mourn and a time to dance, a time to lose. But then there comes a time when we take it all back. David and his men had a choice to make. What now? We've lost everything. Our stuff is gone. Our city is destroyed. Our wives, our children, all gone. So how will we respond? Some of his men chose to blame David. This is all his fault. He made us go with him. Had we been home, we could have protected our loved ones. We could have saved our city. They were in pain. They were angry. And they needed somebody to blame. So they chose David. They even went as far to say that they wanted to stone him. It's human nature to find a scapegoat for our problems. We need to be able to put the blame somewhere, and we can never just accept an unfortunate event for what it is. But then there was David, who decided to take a more proactive approach. He lost just like his men lost. He hurt just like his men hurt. But he wasn't going to give up without a fight. He said, you know what? Yes, this is an awful situation. I've mourned, but now it's time to trust God. And notice that he didn't act too hastily, running into battle just assuming God would be with him. He showed patience and sound judgment. We have to be careful not to react too quickly to a situation before first seeking godly counsel. You may think it's the right decision, and it may be the right decision, but what if it's not the right timing? Be patient and listen for God's direction. That's what David did. He prayed. He told God his plan, and then he waited for a response. And God told him, pursue. Pursue the Amalekites, and not only will you defeat them, but you're going to take back everything that was taken from you. So he grabs his men, and they set out, and on their journey they come across a sickly man. Now they had their own problems they were dealing with. The last thing they need is some sick guy getting in their way. They don't know this guy. They don't know what he's done. Maybe it's his own fault that he's in this predicament. Why should they stop to help him? They're on a mission, and this mission was approved by God. And yet, they did not think twice to stop and bring aid to this man. No matter what trials you find yourself in, you always have time to show kindness and mercy to others, to bless someone in need. While they're tending to this man, David asked him, so fella, what's your story? Well, he says, I'm from Egypt, but I've been a slave to one of the Amalekites. And they've been super busy messing with all kinds of people. They've invaded towns in Israel, Philistia, and Ziklag. And I got sick along the way. I didn't have any sick days built up, so they left me here to die. So this was a slave of the Amalekites, which means probably he knows exactly where to find them. And stopping to help him, David in turn will be able to get this information. So, God blesses those who bless others. So I imagine the conversation went something like this. David said something along the lines of, hey, so remember that time like 10 minutes ago when my men and I saved your life and fed you? How about you tell me where I can find these Amalekites? And the Egyptian slave probably responded, I'll tell you what, if you promise not to kill me and you don't take me back to my master, I'll show you exactly where you can find him. Seems like a reasonable enough offer. So he takes them where they want to go, and not only did they win, but they got back everything that had been taken from them. Every woman, every child, even the smallest thing, nothing was lacking. They recovered all of it. One thing that I do want to stress, they didn't just sit back and expect God to do all the work. They did their part. They worked very hard. David prayed. They went out in search of their stuff, and when they found what had been taken from them, they fought very hard to get it back. It doesn't say specific, but in verse 17, it says that they fought from dusk until evening of the next day, which tells me it's got to be pretty close to about 24 hours. And no doubt they grew tired, but they did have a goal, Something had been taken from them, and they wanted it back. Don't mistake in thinking that God has turned a deaf ear to your problems. Maybe it's just that you're not doing your part. Listen, work for it, and fight for it. We're living in a society that demands maximum reward for minimal effort. We don't want to work for anything. We want to sit back and have it all handed to us. Or just as dangerously, we flip from one project to the next, becoming so easily distracted that we never fully accomplish anything. There's no focus. Just to the west of us is the state of Kentucky. And what are they known for? The Kentucky Derby. It's known as the fastest 2 minutes in sports. 20 horses, 1.25 miles, over 150,000 fans screaming for their horse to win. And horses are known to spook easy, so one might ask, how do their riders keep them focused with all that commotion? And as some of you know, they equip them with these special blinders. Now, these blinders cut off the peripheral vision of the horse. So this way, it can see only what is directly in front, its goal, what it's fighting for. We need to get our spiritual blinders on, focus on our goal, what's right in front of us, and fight for it. So as the musicians will come, I want to just do a quick recap. They've lost everything. They've mourned. David prayed. They regrouped. They focused. They fought. And they took everything back. Over the past few years, this church has lost some things. Some have lost their jobs. Some have lost their health. Some have lost their joy. And some have lost their commitment. So how are we going to respond? We've mourned, we've cried, we've blamed, but now it's time to regroup. It's time to focus. It's time to pray, and it's time to fight. It's time to take it all back. Tonight, on this first youth service of 2017, we're done mourning. We're going to stand up. We're going to focus on what's been taken from us, and we're going to fight until we recover it all. This is our church. We will not be a church of mourning. We will not be a church of pain. We will not be a church of depression, and we will not be a church of anxiety. We will not be a church of sickness, and we will not be a church of complacency. Tonight starts our fight for recovery. We'll be a church of joy. We will be a church of commitment. We will be a church of strength. We will be a church of passion. We will be a church of unity. We will be a church that thrives. We will be a church of champions. We will be a church of victory. Tonight we are going to be a church that takes everything back. I want everybody to come up to the front right now. Do not come by yourself. Grab somebody. Nobody ever died from praying. And if they did, they probably went straight to heaven. So we're going to pray tonight. We're going to pray together. Everybody take somebody's hand. We're going to pray together, and tonight we're going to focus until we get everything back. We're done crying. We're done mourning. We're going to praise. We're not going to plead. We're going to praise because we've already won. We know that we're going to win. It's time to